Okay, today I'm going to talk about the Chinese CPUs, how they develop, and what stages Chinese CPU has gone through, and so on, and about the Wei Wu, the Chinese Loongson CPU's chairman and scientist. We'll review some CCTV about the news about the interview with Wei Wu, and also briefly talking about the Chinese CPU and other instruction set beside Loongson and LoongArch, and also at the end I will show you about some videos by others using LoongArch, the latest instruction set, to translate the x86 games to run on the Loongson 3A5000 CPUs to see how smooth it is. Okay, let's talk about the Chinese CPU first. The first one is the Loongson. Here is the website, and you can search on Baidu or some kind of search engine, and you click on it, you will have a lot of CPU specs and products, models, and chipset as well. So this is the latest one, the 3A5000. You can see 3B5000 may be the server's one. 3A5000 is the desktop one. Okay, you can see 2.3 to 2.5 gigahertz, and with this 160 gigaflops, the max speed, and using the homemade LoongArch architecture and instruction set, and it supports DDR4 3200, and those 35 watt for the power consumption at 2.5 gigahertz, and some kind of specs you can see. So this is the Loongson using LoongArch instruction set. It's not using x86, so this is Loongson. And another Chinese CPU is the Phytium, using ARM, ARM64 and ARM32. So it's Phytium, so it can run the Android app, because Android also using ARM. Huawei also using ARM's instruction set, and this is Phytium, also can be okay, but it's not so self-made, because they buy the right and the production right and the architecture instruction set ARM from the UK SoftBank, Japanese SoftBank, or UK's ARM. So if they sanction the Chinese CPU, they cannot buy the newer instruction set, like what Huawei is being suffered. Okay, Huawei cannot use the ARM's latest instruction set, like the ARM version 9 V9. They cannot use. They can just use a V8, and there are so many restrictions. Even you use the ARM V8, because you need to follow a lot of instructions and patterns. You cannot modify too much, so it's not so self-made, and will be very easy to be sanctioned and to cut by the other countries. So it's not so safe. But Loongson, even the instruction set LoongArch is self-made. For the 3A5000 starting, they have the self-made one. But tell you what, for the 3A4000 before, they use the MIPS because they bought the MIPS right. so they can use the MIPS MIPS to use the on the CPU. But they call it long ISA instruction set compatible with MIPS MIPS. So they didn't claim it. They don't claim it as the MIPS. They claim it as long ISA compatible with MIPS. So you can see. Long ISA. This is the long ISA. Long ISA Lisa compatible with MIPS. So because why they call it like this? Because they have added 148 long X instruction set and 5 instruction set of this long VM and 213 long BT, 1000 more long SIMD. So they modify the MIPS. Originally only have 527 instruction sets, and now the long ISA having nearly 2000. So they don't call it MIPS anymore. They call it long ISA compatible with MIPS. Okay, this is the past tense beginning from this year. I mean 2021, the last year. Now it's 2020, 2022 now. So the last year they already don't care about the MIPS or long ISA compatible with MIPS. Now they have the new instruction set called LoongArch. Okay, for the future CPUs they use LoongArch because they worry about the sanction from the United States. So they totally give up the MIPS or long ISA compatible with MIPS. Okay, so no more MIPS. I think we'll be happy now. I'm happy for it because it's totally 100% of Chinese homegrown self-made CPU. So this LoongArch. Okay, that's a brief story of the history of the Loongson, and this is Huawei and Phytium also using the ARM. And another one is the Sunway is also very homegrown. Why? Because the Sunway SW, this instruction set is the SW64, so it's a totally same case as LoongArch because it's self-made instruction set. No need to care about the other country's sanctions or something. That's very homegrown and very self-made. So unlike ARM, the authority from ARMs. So this is unlike ARM. This is self-made. But this Sunway is mostly using at the servers or the supercomputer. So I remember a couple of years ago, Sunway had made the world's fastest computer, world's fastest computers in the world, using this Sunway self-made instruction set. Maybe I forgot, a couple of years ago. You can check it. Sunway, this CPU, Sunway, you can check it. Sunway SW64. CPU, world's fastest. Yeah, you can check back. Yeah, this the Sunway Taihu Knight is the Sunway SW64 CPU world's fastest. Was ranked as the world's fastest supercomputer on the top 500 list published on Monday. It's the past tense. You can check it out. So supercomputer Sunway normally makes the supercomputer, and the last one is the Zhaoxin. This is Zhaoxin. The story is like it bought the VIA, the Taiwanese chipset maker, VIA, and VIA has the x86 right to produce the x86 CPU. So the VIA might have bought the I forgot this Cyrus or Cirrus. I forgot. This Cirrus compute CPU. Yeah, this Cirrus Corporation. Zhaoxin, VIA bought this. Yeah. VIA, this VIA bought the American Cirrus, VIA C3. Yeah, the Cyrus or Cirrus. So they bought it. They bought the Cyrus, so they have the x86 right to produce, and the Zhaoxin cooperates with the Taiwanese VIA, or bought some kind of x86 industry or market, or some business of x86 from the VIA. So now Shanghai Zhaoxin can produce x86 CPU. So it can run the Windows or x86 software. So there are natively a lot of ecosystem and software ready to go, ready to use. So this is a more market familiar one. But Loongson, for this generation 3A5000, they have the new technologies, the Apple, the Mac computer, Rosetta, the binary translations, like the ARM CPU. The Apple's ARM CPU can run the Windows x86 softwares and apps as well, because they use the Rosetta translation. So Loongson 3A5000 is similar, using LoongArch, and it includes the binary translation, so they can translate the x86 software and apps to LoongArch, and to run on the LoongArch environment and OS, so they can use a lot of ready to go x86 software. So later I will show you how they translate it and how it runs the x86 games to LoongArch, and using the WINE, the WINE environment, to use the Windows apps on Linux. Okay, that's the story about the binary translation and CPUs. And now I'm talking about the let's talk about the CCTV videos about the Wei Wu, the Loongson, this guy, a chairman of Loongson chairmen and scientists and researchers. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's see it first, and I will translate it and do the interpretation, simultaneous interpretation for you, SI, for you to understand what the news is about. Communist Party establishment 100 Years report about the technology. Recently, Chinese homegrown self-developed Loongson 3A5000 has been released, and this CPU uses self-made architecture and instruction set LoongArch, and the performance is near to the world's level. And the one who leads his team to build this CPU is Wei Wu, the Chinese scientist, researchers, and Loongson Technology chairman. Wei Wu. He is saying, being a student needs to serve for people, to struggle learning for our country, need to fill the empty fields of our country, to have the ambition to make our country proud, and will do for the party, for the people, not caring self-lacks, need to strive, do hard before relaxing and enjoyment. Work hard. This is by Wei Wu. This is Communism Party oath for admission. Wei Wu. He was the number one. He got the ranking number one in high school to exam, and then he examined to Chinese Scientific University, major in computer science major. Number one. Went to the university. And that term just opened and withdrawn. He saw the differences between the West and China. So he wanted to fill the emptiness of the field. And he never forgets his oath of joining the Communist Party and his teachers. He respects. Yeah, and he never forgets his oath of joining the Communist Party, and his teachers, like Miss Sa, he respects a lot. They reminded him, our country lacks what we needed to do. That time, as a communist member, realized that he needs to do something for the country. This is talking about in 1990s. People always think that they can import from Western CPU, then all the ecosystems have, and which saves a lot of time and research, and the foreign CPU based on it to develop the self software and fast to have outcome. And who denies it? He said self-made only. He denies it for buying those technology from the West. Self-made only, more important for our country's future. In 2001, 34 years old, who took the took the quest for Loongson CPU research, though he had no experience, but the Chinese Scientific Research Center supports him a lot. He said, the center leads me to do it, otherwise we'll be criticized a lot. And in 2002 around, with the team struggle, they researched successfully the first Chinese CPU self-made, and finally this ended. The Chinese computer has no Chinese CPU. This history has ended. After the Loongson 1 series, I thought about is the Loongson 1 series. The coming 20 years, from research laboratory to market road begins, and the second and the 3 generations. By the generations, Loongson has become Chinese CPU self-made, local, and tech. And the newly reviewed 3A5000 CPU already reaches the nearly international mainstream CPUs level. In practical use, some feels even better than some foreign CPUs. In the hard work, struggling for 20 years, many foreign Western companies found Wu and talked about telling him to give up self-made, and they will sell him the better CPU right on the market. So you don't need to research. You just buy, or they give you money to Wu to buy his CPU and to cooperate with him, telling him to give up. But Wu all rejected them. Even they would like to give a lot of money to Wu. He said, you need to follow our country's strategy. If use their technology equal to destroy our ability of self-made. Once we have self-ability, homegrown self-made, outside market, no matter how it changes on the outside market, we can still follow the CPU's trend and path. We can develop our own stuff. He latestly, for the latest time, he wants to build the independent from AA and Intel. So he wants to be independent from Android and ARM and Intel. The Windows and Intel is the long-term goal for him, for Wu, and to build Longson's own ecosystem, to use Loongson instruction set to protect our country's cyber and information technology security and financial security. So we have to make our Chinese, our race, our nation, our people, to have our people's dominance and say in the world, and technology, skill, and technique have to be in our hands. CPU and OS, these basic foundation devices have to be self-made in order to achieve the above. Self-made, self-control is our party's long-term established self-improve, self-strugglings. Parties long-term establish self-improve, self-strugglings, and to grasp and handle our ability. Starts from New China's establishment, our computers industry generation by generation developed much better and better. Our general computer development has 3 stages. From the 1950s to 1980s is the stage 1. Our country stipulated all self-made plan, and in order to catch the road for modernization, with Ms. Xia and other scientists' hard work, using 18 months only, and finished the CPUs and tasks for the first stage, stage 1. That era is a 100% self-made era, like start from sand and stone, and because of that, which fulfill the task and the project of 2 atomic bombs and 1 satellite. That's project. And the stage 2 is in the 1990s to the early 21st century. This is the stage 2 of the Chinese general computer development. Many Chinese computer companies grown up big, but Wintel, which is Windows and Intel, and using this, and let Chinese companies grow up to the world's market, and every family started to have it, but only using foreign CPUs and OS and the core technologies from the West. And from the 21st century to now, our country starts to focus on CPU's core part. Loongson is the one of the at that stage. This stage is a stage 3. This year, 3A5000 is near mainstream market CPU. Yeah, stage 3. Self-made now. Okay, finish. So that's it. Loongson CCTV SI simultaneous interpretation. I hope you understand what I'm saying because it's so, impromptu, and reading the scripts and stop the videos and on and off a little bit messy, but you understand it, then it's okay. And the source is from the Bilibili course. 这两的Wei Wu和Loongson CPU. This the guy is this unit from this CCTV. So let's go to the last part. Is this 3A5000 CPU using binary translation to translate the x86 games to run at the Loongson CPU 3A5000 using binary translation and with the WINE while environment to use to run the Windows app, x86 Windows app on the Linux, Chinese Linux, LoongArch, to run the using the LoongArch. Let's see it. This is running Linux and LOL. Binary translation, they are playing very smooth. You can see, you can run game. Before the 3A4000, the last generations one couldn't run the x86 games and x86 software. Now it's different. Now the ecosystem is bigger because they can run the x86, and this is not the final goal. This is not the final goal, and their final goal is to build their own instruction set with their own ecosystem. Now just the passing stage. That's just the stepping stones like Huawei using Harmony OS, but compatible with Android's app APK. The Android's APK is the same theory, just like the Rosetta using the x86 apps, but they can build the ARMS versions at the end. So this is to fill the emptiness of the ecosystem using LoongArch, because LoongArch is the new instruction set which has no more new softwares and apps, so they use a MIPS x86 and the ARMS ecosystem ready to use, ready to go. So translated to use for us temporary transient stepping stone. Okay, now see the Diablo 2 on the LoongArch 3A5000 binary translation x86 Windows game to the Linux using LoongArch. See, this is LoongArch and playing Diablo 2, which is unbelievable, right? Before, when I was young, I used to play the Diablo 2 on the Windows and with the Intel or AMD CPU. Now, using 100% homegrown self-made Chinese CPU, Loongson with LoongArch architecture, LoongArch instruction set. Before it was the x86 instruction set using Windows. Now, the LoongArch instruction set, Chinese CPU, Chinese Linux, playing the American foreign games, x86 foreign games, Diablo 2. Right? It's funny, which is interesting, very smooth as well. And if you want to watch more about these games or some softwares running on the 3A5000, you can just go to the Bilibili and type the Bilibili 3A5000 and search the latest release videos. You can see a lot of games they are showing to you. This is Lao John Dao, this guy, give him a credit. Show all the games to you. Yeah, playing the game smooth. Many games they can have, and many. Even CS. UOS, another OS by Chinese Linux. Now they are using a LoongArch inside to play CS smooth. Okay, and you can also check my videos about 3A5000. Also, there are demonstrations about how they use the apps and Photoshop or something they can also use. I will show you soon. You can see here CS playing smoothly. Sooner or later, the 3A6000 next year release, then will be great because the performance is much better. Much better. It's a i5 level, the 8th generation i5 level for the Intel equivalent, so they can play a lot of games. Let me show you my videos about the how they use the binary translation. So here is about the binary translation. I'm showing about this Photoshop running apps something. I will show you.
This is the LVM Golan goes so they can run WeChat, Photoshop, Adobe Dreamweaver, and it also supports adapters and KVM, also ARM and x86. ARM and x86. So they can run WeChat, Photoshop, Adobe Dreamweaver, and some kind of CS, some games. Before they couldn't use it. Now you can see the videos how they use these run x86 software.
So you can see they are running Photoshop, x86 software, 3A5000 LoongArch, using other apps, Windows app as well. See here, all the apps smoothly.
All the software is not from LoongArch.
Even WeChat.
x86 from Windows, but they use the binary translation to translate x86 to LoongArch, and then using using WINE to translate this from Windows to LoongArch. The writing environment they have a lot of software now.
So that's it. So LoongArch is the Chinese CPU, so it's very great now. They can have the binary translation, so they can run a lot of x86 Windows software. Okay. See you.